Assalamu alaikum guys, welcome to Muslim Money Expert. My name's Amin, and in today's video we will be discussing the correct order to invest in. Now this video is loosely based on Dave Ramsey's 7 baby steps and a lot of the knowledge that I've gathered over the previous decade working in wealth management and financial planning, but I've adapted this to fit the Muslim community a lot better. So we'll get straight into it, but before we get onto the 7 steps that I will be highlighting in this video, I need to make it clear again, you cannot do anything until you get a budget in place. Right, now we've got that out of the way, let's move on to the first goal when it comes to investing in the correct order, and that is to build an emergency pot. Now for the first step, we recommend building £1,000 in an emergency pot. Now this should cover most of your emergencies. I'd say probably around 80 to 90% of emergencies should be covered by this. For example, if your car was to break down, you needed to take it to the mechanics, or your boiler was to break down and you needed to call in a plumber, in most situations £1,000 should help. But why do we recommend you put together £1,000 before you do anything else? Because if you start investing now before having this emergency pot available to you, what happens if you have an emergency? You then either have to pull out the money from your investments. Is it going to be an opportune time to take it out? You do not know, because the market could be down at that day, or maybe your money's locked into an investment account and you could have some sort of penalty. And that is why we recommend having £1,000 in a deposit account hidden away from you, only to be accessed in an emergency. Now you've got your emergency pot sorted, what is the next step? And that is to work out all your debts that you have and any loans that you have, and you should now work on paying those off. Now there's different methods on how you can go about paying that off, but just to keep it simple for this video, just work on paying off all your consumer debts. So that could be car finance, bank loans, overdraft. And this is especially important for us as Muslims, considering that interest is haram. So the quicker we pay it off, the better it is for us. Now in this section, Dave Ramsey would normally recommend that you do not worry about paying off your mortgage above the minimum. Now this becomes a bit of a wider topic, and there's 2 opinions that I've researched into and I've looked into. It's up to you to decide and do your own research and speak to the scholars that you know. But the 2 options are, you can continue to pay your minimum mortgage payment on a monthly basis after you've repented for your sin, if you've taken out a conventional mortgage that involves interest, and that is sufficient for you. And the other opinion is that you look to pay off your mortgage as soon as possible. Personally, I would hate to be involved in any interest-bearing sort of loan, so I would look to pay off my mortgage, if it was a conventional mortgage, as quick as possible. But I may personally look to find some sort of balance of paying off the mortgage above the minimum amounts to pay it off quicker, but also having a portion reserved for the next steps that I'm going to discuss. For the research I have done, there are those 2 options. Assuming that you are going to be paying the minimum amount towards your mortgage or striking that balance, we can then move on to the 3rd step. And the 3rd step is to return building up your emergency pot. Now we had a great start, we put £1,000 to the side, but now we need to build it up to cover 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. Now this goes back, if you've got your budget in place, you know where your money's going, you already know what your expenses are every month. So for example, if your monthly expenses are £1,000 per month, you should look towards building an emergency pot up to £3,000 to £6,000. If your monthly expenses are £2,000 per month, then you should look to build an emergency pot of between £6,000 to £12,000. It's quite straightforward, but this should be your number 1 focus after paying off all your debts. Now, why do we say build up your emergency pot? Is £1,000 not sufficient? No, it's not. What happens if you lose your job? What happens if you have an accident? What happens if you have a relative abroad that becomes ill and you need to fly out? In that situation, £1,000 is not going to get you very far, whereas having that 3 to 6 months worth of breathing space means your expenses are covered, and it gives you a lot of breathing space and improves your mental health, where you're not stressing and you can focus on the issue at hand. Once you've built that, you put that to the side and you forget about it and you do not touch it unless it's an emergency and you've got no other option. Now you've got your 3 to 6 months worth of expenses saved in an emergency pot, you've got all your debt paid. What do we do next? We now look to become more aggressive with our retirement savings. Now, you do not want to be in a situation where you reach 50, 60 years old and you do not have any retirement savings. I've come across so many clients that have broken down into tears, realizing that if they had only saved sooner, they would have had double, triple the amount. They could have started exploring their hobbies and their interests, taking off time early, taking more holidays, splashing on their kids, splashing on their grandchildren. They've lost out on building those memories that they've always dreamt of. And what are the benefits of starting early? By starting early, you can benefit from compounding. And compounding, if you don't know, is the secret to building wealth that no one tells you about. Now, if I give you an example, say you have 20 years until your retirement, and you think, you know what, let me start early, I'm gonna put £100 towards my retirement every single month, and will average a growth rate of 7%. By the end of the 20-year term, you will have a retirement pot in the region of £52,000. Now, on the other hand, if you say, you know what, I've still got 20 years from my retirement, what I'll do is I will wait until I'm 10 years away from retirement, and I will then double my investment over that time, and it should match up. So for example, person B is investing £200 a month at the same growth rate of 7% for those 10 years, and they're thinking they'll catch up. They won't catch up. They will only have a pot in the region of £32,000. That's almost a £20,000 difference. The same initial investment has been made of £24,000 in both situations. However, person A has £20,000 more purely through compounding. And that is why we start early, and that is why we don't delay it. So how much should you be looking to put towards your retirement goals? Now, most of us will be part of our auto-enrollment scheme at work and be receiving employer contributions, and with our own contributions that should total around 8% of our income. But we should look to up that towards 15 to 20%. Now, personally, when I was working, when I increased my pension contributions towards 20%, and I felt that was a good balance for me in the pension. And now another great benefit of increasing your pension contributions in the UK are you receive tax relief on your income. By doing salary sacrifice, your employer may also agree to increase their pension contributions by the saved employer NI, and if they are a really good company, they may also look to match your contributions. So to summarize, start early with your retirement saving, be aggressive, and look to compound for that additional growth. Now we've got our retirement savings sorted. What is the next step? And this is where we return to becoming aggressive on paying off our mortgage. Now, a lot of people will push back and say, why do we need to pay off our mortgage? We've secured an interest rate of 4 or 5% per annum, and I can go out and get 7 to 8% in the equity investment market. So I will be better served by going out and investing for the long term and then paying off my mortgage as it comes to its natural end. No, interest is haram. We need to get that through our heads, and we need to understand that, and we need to tackle it. So if we have a conventional mortgage that has interest entwined with it, we need to pay that off as soon as we can, and this is where I would look to focus to pay that off as soon as possible. Not only are we avoiding accumulating more sins, but go and speak to somebody that is mortgage free and ask them if they have the stresses that somebody with a mortgage has, or how it felt to be when they had a mortgage. Having a mortgage over your head stops you from taking so many actions. How many people are there that wanted to start a business out there? How many people are there that wanted to take time off work, but because of their mortgage, they were forced to continue working in their 9-to-5 job just to pay that mortgage off? So this is why we want to become super hyper focused on paying off the mortgage as quick as possible. And by paying off the mortgage and removing that one final debt from our head, we can then focus on building that generational wealth, building that wealth in this lifetime, or building the lifestyle that you want. You will not only save years of paying your mortgage, you will save considerable interest, and you will be able to open so many other doors once that stress is off your head. So now moving on to the next step. By this point, we've got our 6 months worth of expenses. We've paid off every single debt, including our mortgage. We've sorted out our retirement savings. So now we want to start investing for the short and the medium term. Now what do I mean by the short term? Short term is the next 1 to 3 years. So if you want to buy a new car, you start saving towards that now. If you want a new kitchen for your home, you start saving for that now. You allocate a proportion of your free income. Now you should at this point have significant free income, and because you've been stringent and intentional with your spending over the last however many years it has been to get to this point, you will be a lot more disciplined with your spending. So you can then allocate a proportion towards your short-term spending. Then you can allocate a portion towards your medium term. And what do I mean by medium term? Medium term is anywhere from 5 to 12 years in that period. So if you want to buy another investment property, or maybe you want to purchase your first home, you can start saving towards a deposit for that, or even the full cash amount. If you want to go back to study, maybe you want to pick up your master's or your PhD, you can start saving towards those goals. Anything that you want to do, you can now begin saving towards those goals. And how do you save towards those goals? So if you're saving for your short-term goals, you may want to look at some deposit accounts. Now there are some halal options out there for deposit accounts that will pay you a profit rate and are secure. It means you will never lose money, and that is great for a period of 1 to 5 years where you can't tell where the market's going to be in those 1 to 5 years. And then if you're looking at your medium term, this is where you could start considering investing into stocks and shares. And for those type of investments, you want to look at opening an ISA account. An ISA account is a tax wrapper. That means anything held within that will be tax-free, and you can almost access your money immediately, subject to market movements at the period you need the money. There are other tax wrappers out there, or other types of accounts out there that you may wish to look into or discuss with a financial planner, subject to your needs. Now the next step that I've adapted again for our Muslim community is to look towards also putting a portion towards your Hajj savings. Now Hajj, I've been looking at prices recently, and they range anywhere from £8,000 to £20,000 per person. Assuming there's 2 of you, you could comfortably be looking to spend £20,000 to £25,000 for a decent package for 2 people. And this is something that you want to look to save towards. The earlier you start, the better it is for you, due to the benefits of compounding. And if we set a goal in mind and become intentional towards it, it will come a lot quicker and a lot sooner, inshallah, than just hoping for the best. And personally, I would focus this in my medium term goals, but I put it as a separate section just so we can ensure that it is always in our mind and focused on. Now that's all the steps that I wanted to cover in this video, but I do also just want to add one point. Dave Ramsey, in his 7 steps, he notes as the final step to start becoming generous with your income and with your wealth, and start looking to do charity and philanthropy. But however, as Muslims, we should be doing this throughout our life, so that has not been a separate point, but please ensure that you do focus on giving that. Now I hope this video was of some benefit, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Assalamu alaikum.